Great. Hello, and thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. I'm really excited to share today the results of a new study that we at Hireology just released, and we're going to dig into some real-life examples of how you can put some of these insights into action. So welcome to the Future of Hiring 2023, 5 opportunities to hire better talent faster. Before we start, a little bit about myself. My name is Adam Robinson. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Hireology. Here at Hireology, we're a talent technology platform purpose-built to help you build your very best team with everything you need to attract, hire, and manage the team you need to be successful. Today, we serve over 7,000 customers across all 50 states in North America, and excited to give you a glimpse into the data that across our platform we're gleaning on behalf of our customers. Everything we're going to talk about today is based on real world examples and real data. So it's not theory, it is in practice. And my hope for our time here together today is that you can come away from this discussion with 1 or 2 actionable insights you can put into place back in your business. We're going to hold questions till the end, but if you have questions and want to type them into the chat window in the Zoom interface, you can do that. We'll take them time permitting at the end. So if you've ever attended a Hireology webinar before, you know we like to kick things off with a look at the latest job market numbers for context. And this is the most recent report we got from the BLS, which was a pretty big surprise to the upside. So in January, employers added 517,000 new jobs, which nearly tripled the expectation. And at the same time, the unemployment rate dropped to 3.4%, which is the lowest it's been since 1969. And what this tells us is that the job market is still running hotter than ever, and a recession might not be as much of a threat as experts have predicted. At the very least, that prospect has been pushed farther out in time. And so some additional highlights include the fact that most of January's jobs came from the leisure and hospitality sector. So that was 128,000 jobs created. Wage growth slowed in January, with average hourly earnings falling about 40 basis points to a 4.4% annual increase. The labor force participation rate actually increased to 62.4%, up from 62.3%. And when you're talking about tenths of a percentage point on a workforce of 150, 160 million, that's a big boost to talent availability. And then the information sector, despite the headlines about layoffs in the tech sector, on balance, only lost 5,000 jobs. And so what this means for you all, particularly in verticals like hospitality, healthcare, and automotive retail, is that after years of hiring difficulty, talent is even harder to come by than it's ever been. And so on average, across all of these industry verticals, there's still 2 open jobs for every 1 job seeker. But skilled labor industries like those that we serve here at Hireology continue to pour jobs into the economy, making that ratio even more extreme. So wage growth slowed in January, with average hourly earnings falling 0.4 percentage points. Participation rate is up. And, we just aren't seeing a lot of relief on the unemployment side. And so that just means that it's tougher than ever. And we have to be better than we've ever been in order to compete successfully. So I mentioned hospitality, but where did all of these jobs come from? Largely from the industries you all represent here. So leisure and hospitality, as I mentioned, 128,000 jobs in January alone, which was followed by professional and business services, government, healthcare, and retail. And so the takeaway here is that these jobs are largely in skilled labor industries hiring hourly workers. And so since the pandemic eased, these have been by far the hardest jobs to fill, right? So we are in what I think is a white collar knowledge workforce hiring recession, but the demand for skilled hourly talent remains ascendant. And so at Hireology, all of our customers are in these industries where skilled talent is in demand. And so we get it and we see what's going on in these businesses. And so while technology companies have seen headlines of massive layoffs, I know all of us here on this call are really struggling to fill these open roles, and it's tough. And so that's what we're here to discuss today. Now, touching briefly on jobs per job seeker, as of January, we're still seeing a 2-to-1 ratio of job openings per job seeker. And again, if you were to break this down into the verticals we all represent here, it would likely be even higher. And so competition for the very best of the available job seekers out there is really tight. And this is a trend we've seen hold steady since the fall of 2021. It really hasn't gotten any better. And so just to further illustrate this point, when we surveyed our database of job seekers last year, half of all job seekers on our platform said that their most recent job search, they applied to 16 plus jobs, right? That means you're potentially competing with 15 other employers every time you've got a candidate in front of you. So you really need to find a way to get ahead of the competition and stand out in the eyes of today's top talent. Well, how do we do that? That's what we set out to find in our latest research, which is based on a survey of more than 1,000 employers in the industries that you all represent. Now, we asked about 30 questions on all things recruiting and hiring, from their top sources of applicants to what their challenges and priorities are in the year ahead. And so here's a closer look at the industries represented, which again is a good reflection of the attendance on this webinar today. So what did we uncover? Well, we structured the results in terms of 5 key opportunities for you to gain a leg up in today's competitive landscape. Essentially, there are 5 things that most employers today aren't doing, but we know works based on our understanding of the job market and our experience in the recruiting and hiring space. So first, redefine the work you offer. Second, diversify and optimize applicant sourcing. Third, invest in DEI. Fourth, prioritize quality over quantity. And fifth, improve the candidate experience. So let's dig into each of these. The first big takeaway we found is this massive gap between what today's job seekers want out of work and what employers are willing to offer. So the opportunity here lies in finding a way to redefine the work you offer to meet the needs of today's job seekers so you can capture your fair share of the job market ahead of your competition. So to illustrate this point, I want to take a second to revisit data from our spring 2022 survey of applicants. When we asked job seekers what would motivate them to take a lower paying offer if they're presented with 2 offers, only 14% said absolutely nothing, right? So what that means is 86% of job seekers are motivated by other types of benefits. It's not just a race to the most pay. So the top 3 you'll see here include flexibility, really means schedule flexibility, career growth, and fulfilling work. Now, this illustrates a massive shift away from people simply taking jobs that pay the most, but rather people are more nuanced. And yes, they need to make a certain amount of money, but they're willing to sacrifice that somewhat if their other needs for more fulfillment, growth, happiness, work-life balance are met. But then we surveyed employers on whether or not they offer these benefits, and the vast majority did not. So some highlights: about 2/3 of employers, those we're competing with for that same person, are not offering any type of scheduling flexibility for their hourly workforce. 70% don't offer paid time off for hourly workers. 75% aren't offering career growth opportunities that are defined, and almost 85% don't offer mental health support, which is increasingly important for workers looking for fulfillment and happiness at work, especially now as we move on from the effects of the pandemic. So there's a massive gap between what job seekers today want and what employers are offering. And closing this gap is really important for all of you, because looking to fill critical roles, we are competing against 16 other folks looking for that same person. The labor supply and demand imbalance isn't going anywhere. And the good news here is 3/4 of our competition aren't doing anything about any of this, right? So if we want to stand out, we can offer the things that our target markets say they want, that our competition for those applicants largely are not offering. So let's take a look at one organization that's doing this well to better illustrate what this might look like in practice. So Delray Buick GMC, this is a dealership seeing really high turnover among their sales professionals who had options and skills to work elsewhere. Some of the things that they did, they cut back on the long hours traditionally associated with automotive retail. They, sacrilege in automotive retail, they reduced weekend store hours and they cut back their shifts from 10-hour shifts to 8-hour shifts. They also spread some benefit around and added commission to sales assistants. So everybody had a stake in the outcome. They changed the way their sales leads were handled to make life easier for business development and their sales staff as well, importantly, as their customers. And they went from closing 4 to 5% of sales leads to closer to 10%, nearly doubling, while improving their retention rate nearly 40%. Here's another example. Acuity Insurance was named Glassdoor's best company to work in terms of work-life balance for 2 years running. Now, this company offers a remote or flexible work policy, great insurance. They pay 85% of insurance costs, transparency and access to leadership, right? They're an open book culture. They've got a stated program for speaking up that gives everyone a safe space to speak up in the business. There's really no strict or rigid dress codes, right? They embrace individuality and they have a culture that makes the work fun. And so as a result, they've reported a 98% retention rate among their employee base, and they've grown 220% faster than their industry benchmark and are 8 percentage points more profitable, which would say all of these things, I would argue, were things that we would all aspire to accomplish. The next opportunity we found from this data lies with diversifying and optimizing your applicant sourcing. So too often we find that employers are relying on 1 or 2 channels and they're throwing money at these channels, hoping that more money equals more applicants. But really what works is diversification of sourcing, right? So monitoring where your best hires are coming from, optimizing your strategy to prioritize those channels. So what are those channels you should be leveraging? Let's look at the data, right? So when you take a look at what's working out there, we asked, what channels are you using to connect with and drive applicants? Job boards, unsurprisingly, at the top of the list. Job boards are critical sourcing channels for you to be successful. In fact, they drive the majority of the top of your funnel. The third thing on the list here, though, employee referrals, are things where most companies have a program in place but aren't leveraging it fully, right? And so, 44% said they have an employee referral program, but let's look at what's happening from an applicant standpoint. The most applicants have been driven by job boards, right? The combination of general and niche boards coming in at just around 26%, employee referrals at around 15%, and then other things like job fairs or trade school partnerships. What drives the highest quality, right? So we talked about what are people doing, what's driving the highest top of funnel, and then what's driving the most hires. The highest quality hires for the organization is really a toss-up between job boards and employee referrals, right? So if, this is where you want to take stock at what you're currently doing. If you're finding that you've got strong results coming from job boards and you feel like you've really milked that channel to the greatest extent you can, and you have an underutilized referral channel, this is your opportunity to really dig in there and take a look at what you can be doing to drive what is, for most companies, the number 1 or number 2 source of hires. So an example of a customer using our platform, and here's how they use it to track effectiveness of their sourcing channels. So you can see here, of the 423 total applicants they've had, 138 are quality, which means they were deemed to qualify for the role and they wanted to spend more time with them as a candidate. And then you can see a breakdown of where these quality candidates came from. And you can see in this case, career site and referrals, their own career site that we host and referrals drove the most quality applicants, which helps them prioritize where to spend resources and where to double down. So let's look at an example of that. So One of our customers here at Hireology was struggling to find automotive technicians to fill the service departments of their 12 dealership locations. Now, like most automotive dealerships, they were courting technicians with signing bonuses and the offer to buy tools and other, competitive pay. However, this led their new hires to shopping their offer around to other dealerships, and they had a real technician retention problem. So they knew they needed to supplement their traditional digital channels with additional sourcing opportunities that allowed the team to better educate job seekers on the benefits of the career path. And so, in addition to the sources they were relying on, they started partnering with tech schools and programs to offer training opportunities to build a pipeline of up and coming talent. And since they added this partnership source to the mix, they've worked with dozens of schools to drive name recognition for their dealership network as the dealership group to start and grow a career with in automotive. And so recently, after speaking at a local high school, our contact at this dealership said before he drove 4 hires from just a class of 30 that he spoke to. And so again, the idea here is you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket, but rather take a look at your sourcing and figure out, where are some of these longer tail opportunities where others may not be playing, where you get a real return for your time. All right, third opportunity. Another major takeaway from the results of this survey is that diversity, equity, and inclusion just isn't a priority for most employers, but it is a priority for applicants. So presenting you with an opportunity to invest time and effort into your DEI program in order to get ahead. So let's take a closer look. So before I dig into the data, I want to touch on why DEI matters so much. So first and foremost, working to build a diverse and inclusive workplace is simply the right thing to do. So on top of that, diverse and inclusive workplaces generally drive better business outcomes, largely because more diverse perspectives lead to better ideas. That's what the research tells us. But diversity also has benefits when it comes to recruiting talent. So many of the job seekers in our key verticals are more diverse, especially in healthcare. And younger generations in the workforce, those are your Gen Zers, tended to place a far greater value on diversity in the workforce than prior generations. But despite the clear benefits to having a diverse team, only 15% of employers responded to the survey saying they're working to either improve, revamp, or market their specific DEI program to make their business more attractive to more applicants. So 85% are not. So even meeting the basics of defining a policy and promoting it to applicants puts you in the top 15%. So the hurdle to clear to be the best at this in your market at this point is really low. There is a big payoff in getting this right, not only in terms of reaching a broader candidate pool, but also translating that diverse hire base into better business results. And so among those that have promoted their DEI program, most still haven't implemented some of the most important aspects of a good DEI program. So only 39% say they've made an effort to include inclusive language in job descriptions. Only 16% mandate implicit bias training, and less than half have implemented fair and inclusive interview procedures. So prioritizing some of these things, you can put yourself at the very top of that 15% when it comes to DEI, which again, today's job seeker prioritizes at a very high level. So these are some pretty simple improvements you can make that really have a lasting impact on your ability to recruit and retain great talent. So let's take a look at an example here, right? So this is IKEA. What I like about this program is that if you're a job seeker, you actually get details about how IKEA is improving diversity and inclusion right on their career site. So for example, you'll see the details of their coworker resource groups on the right-hand side. On the website, they also go into detail about what they've done to improve LGBT plus inclusion. I also like that they hold themselves accountable to these outcomes and actually show data of the breakdowns of the backgrounds at their company, such as the percent of women in leadership and across the company. And so, as I noted above, most employers still don't actually market or advertise these programs. And building out a site like IKEA has with some of these details can make a really big difference. Now, most of you here on the call are not, from an employer of this size, but I want you to think about what you can do in your market along this vein to put yourself out there as an employer of choice. Next, we're finding that most organizations are still prioritizing quantity over quality, which doesn't always have the effect many employers think it has on achieving hiring goals. So quantity is great if your goal is to simply bring in applicants, but really for most of you, your end goal is to fill the role, right? To fill it with great people that are going to stick around. So it makes more sense, and it gives you a leg up to place more value on quality than quantity. So when we asked respondents to rank their top priorities for 2023, these are employers. Attracting more applicants was by far the top choice. Quality came in second, and then improving speed came in third. So most are still heading into this year with the mindset that they just need more and more applicants rather than trying to get better applicants and then moving quickly, right? So the difference is, a focus on driving more top of funnel versus higher quality and converting what you do have at a higher rate. So the opportunity for you here ties to the opportunity I discussed earlier around channels. So put your effort, your resources, and time into the channels are going to bring you great candidates who are right for your roles, rather than just a sheer volume of applicants. So when you bring the right people into your hiring process, you're going to hire faster. You're going to fill those roles sooner, right? For most of us, headcount equals revenue. And so we want to keep our teams around longer, ultimately drive your business forward. So we're filling roles faster. That's faster time to revenue. We're keeping people around longer. All of those things have big bottom line impact. So one of the channels specifically we know works well from the earlier slides I presented in the research is referrals. Yet when we followed up and asked how employers are investing in their referral programs, by and large, they're not promoting these programs internally at all. Those that do say they're primarily doing so during new hire onboarding, and then they kind of let it go. Very few are using tactics we know to be effective, like email and text campaigns to employees with personalized messages, encouraging them to participate. So think of it this way. We know referrals drive the best quality hires, but the outcomes you get are only as good as what you put into it. So investing in your program can really start to help you drive those better quality candidates and gain a leg up on your competitors who are still looking to drive volume, right? So in practice, what does that look like? Here's another example. This is a Hireology customer. This is a retailer with over 10,000 employees across their network that came to us desperately needing to drive more roles to their hourly skill, more applicants to their hourly skilled positions, and knew, based on the numbers you see here, that referrals led to more quality candidates, a lower cost to hire, and overall better productive employees than candidates that came from their traditional digital channels. And so they doubled down on referral efforts with better marketing internally and by providing easier ways for employees to submit referrals. So you'll see an example of the flyers they used with the QR codes right here. So overall, the idea here is that even if you have channels that bring in significantly more volume, why prioritize your time there if the applicant conversion rate is really low, right? The focus should always be on quality if you want to hire better people who stick around and who are more productive for your organization. And the best way to do that, the highest return on your time, is by leveraging your referral program and campaigning to the employee base that you have. And then finally, there's an opportunity to beat your competition by improving the overall candidate experience, right? So to illustrate this point, I want to start with the problem, which is really candidate ghosting, which is when a candidate simply drops out of the process suddenly without communication. And I know we've all experienced that particularly recently. So this year, we actually found ghosting has gotten worse. In 2021, 84% of respondents said they'd been ghosted by a candidate in the past year, but at the end of 2022, that number had jumped to 91%. And we know from our applicant survey that the biggest reason why candidates are ghosting is that they received another offer, right? Doesn't mean they're a bad person. It means that someone else got to them with a decision before you. Now, meaning another employer was able to move faster, it means your process took too long, or it just felt too unorganized and difficult to get through the hiring steps. And the same pattern goes for getting ghosted on an actual job offer. So in 2021, 58% of respondents, employer respondents, said they've had candidates ghost when they received an actual job offer. And in 2022, that number jumped to 82%. Again, most of the time, this is because some other employer just moved faster or provided a better hiring process. But then when we asked what employers have done to enhance the candidate experience in the past year, again, by and large, they're not doing much to make it easier or faster. So about 2/3 have implemented mobile-friendly applications. 2/3 have not implemented mobile-friendly applications. 75% of employers don't offer virtual interviews. And 77% don't use texting as a primary means of communication with candidates. So what this tells us is that, again, hiring processes aren't built to cater to the individual's actual needs in the hiring process and how they want to be worked with, right? It's a reflection of our own internal employment practices. And so it's contributing to lost applicants and candidates. Additionally, most respondents are still taking more than 2 days to even respond to an applicant. So this is 2 days that an applicant could interview for a job somewhere else, right? So you've all heard, you've all heard the talk about Amazon. If they're able to make an offer in 45 minutes, why would a candidate wait around 2 days just to hear back after they've submitted an application elsewhere, right? You are competing against the clock. And over 60% of the time, the first employer to respond makes the hire, right? So speed to response in many ways is the most important, lowest hanging fruit change you can make to increase your hiring results. And hiring processes are, for the most part, taking more than 2 weeks, which again, if you think about how fast great candidates are getting hired, the top third are getting offers in less than 2 weeks. So there's an opportunity here to just speed the process up and capture that group of highly sought after job seekers, right? The thing to think about is, what can we do to shave days off of this process? We want to theoretically be in a position to make a conditional offer when the candidate walks out the door or leaves that Zoom interview, as immediately or instantaneously as we can. That's the absolute best you can do. And so, as an example here, let's take a look at a company we hear about all the time, and that is Amazon. And so, while I know striving to be like Amazon is it may not be something you aspire to for lots of reasons, also perhaps unrealistic due to their size, it is worth looking into conceptually what they're doing to capture so much of the talent we're all competing for. I mean, every year, they ramp up and down 300,000 hires around the holidays. I mean, it's worth looking into what they're doing to do that so effectively every single year. And so, we've heard stories about warehouse workers applying to a job and getting an offer on the spot. Certainly their target is 45 minutes or less. Whether or not this is happening across all their warehouse facilities, it does illustrate that Amazon is able to move fast. They understand that to get a return on their time, they can't wait, right? If someone is qualified for the role and available to work, they're putting offers in their hands before they leave the facility. And so a few things that Amazon's decided to do that you may want to consider. Number one, they're not requiring a resume to apply for the role. They offer clear timeline of the hiring process and a description of the entire hiring process, right? So they are setting expectations up front. They offer lots of videos with tips for the interview process. So they're catering to that individual and helping put them at ease. And then fourth, they're allowing you to text to get your name in for new job alerts. So they're building a talent network. Again, that's easy, that's fast, it's very candidate friendly, especially for people who are applying on their phones and don't have much time to spend navigating a lengthy application or hiring process. So they can do it quickly and they know exactly what to expect. So to recap some of the data we highlighted from our most recent research today, only 33% of employers offer any kind of scheduling flexibility, right? But scheduling flexibility is the number one benefit that sets one employer apart from the other. It's not pay, it's flexibility. Referral programs are the most common driver of quality hires. So across the more than 7,000 customers that we work with, the best source consistently of quality hires are the employees you've already got, right? 85% of employers have not improved their DEI programming in the last year, which is misaligned to what the job seeker is looking for. Most employers still believe maximizing candidate volume is a priority over quality of applicant. And then finally, 91% of employers have been ghosted by a candidate, which is effectively all of us. And so that is a reflection of a hiring process that's slower than the competition. So by looking at what your peers are doing, you can identify key opportunities to get ahead, to stand out in the eyes of job seekers, and to capture more than your fair share of today's talent pool, because we are, of course, as you all know, in a zero-sum game here, right? There's just not a lot of talent out there that's available, and they have their choice. It is an employee's market. And so if you want to see the full results and get the report, you can scan this QR code here on your screen, and we'll get that shipped off to you right away. There's lots of really interesting nuggets in there that you can use to think about your own hiring process. I also want to take a minute to recap those 5 opportunities that we pulled from the data, right? Number 1, redefine the work you offer. Rethink your jobs and your benefits in order to attract job seekers with the product they actually want to buy. These seekers have evolving needs and no shortage of opportunities at their fingertips. We have to match the opportunity to what they are looking for. Second, diversify and optimizing applicant sourcing, right? Don't just mash on 1 or 2 channels. You've got to use a true multi-channel sourcing strategy and double down on the sources that drive actual candidates and hires. And here I emphasize your employee referral programming. Third, investing in DEI because it's right and because it helps you recruit and retain a wider range of talent from all backgrounds and age groups. Next, prioritizing quality over quantity. And finally, improving the candidate experience, which is really, I would just underline this as a catch-all. Standing out in the eyes of job seekers today who have 15 other opportunities require making it a lot easier for them to navigate your hiring process. It's got to go faster. It's got to feel like it caters to them. Most employers haven't done this, so you still have an opportunity to get a leg up in the market and hire people with a better candidate experience that sets you apart. And so with that, we have a few minutes for questions. I'll open it up and would just say to everybody, thanks for your time here today. I do look forward to having the opportunity to connect with you again in the future. So with that, any questions? All right, well, I'll say thanks everybody for your time today. On behalf of the team here at Hireology, I want to thank you for spending the last half hour with me. I will go ahead and put this QR code back up on the screen. If you want access to this and any additional data we might have, reach out. We're here for your success. Again, on behalf of Hireology, my name is Adam Robinson. Thank you, and we'll talk again soon.